I hope you can hear me now, right? So one of the students has asked that cattle rearing, it is called, animal rearing is cattle rearing. First of all, please understand that animal rearing and cattle rearing are two different things. Cattle is a very, you can say a very, a very streamlined thing, right? Cattle is only like cows and all these from which we get the dairy product. Whereas the animals that we are talking about can be fish, can be anything, can be fish, can be your cattle, can be pigs. All these are your rearing of animals. So definitely when we talk about agriculture, both of these things are included, right? Because what we are looking at, we are looking at the food that we are going to obtain, right? So when we are talking about raising plants, we talk about that, the wheat that you're eating, the chapati, then you talk about the vegetables that you're eating, right? Then apart from that, you also, whenever you're thinking, you think of fruits, right? And now we also include the rearing animals, right? Rearing of animals. So whenever we are talking about the animal products that we are obtaining, we get dairy products like your milk and milk related products. Apart from that, we get meat and egg, right? So all these things are there which are utilized, or which are used for obtaining food, right? So now let's understand, what do we understand by before we move on to the understanding of the crops and the management of the crops. Let's understand that what was, or what used to happen before people started practicing agriculture. So agriculture is something which was new to us, right? So this is something which we only developed a few thousand years ago, right? So there was like 10-20,000 years ago, the people did not practice agriculture. So how did they obtain their food, right? So whenever we are thinking about the food obtaining before the agriculture, people were what? They were actually nomads. Now when we say nomads, nomads are nothing but they are gatherers, right? So when we are talking about nomads, right, so these are the people who will gather the food, they hunt for their food, right? They depended on these different plants and the animals which were there, and they would go out and they would hunt for them, right? So these were the nomads, they were gatherers, right? So that's how before agriculture we used to, what we used to do, we used to get the food from the surrounding. Once the people started understanding that okay, we can grow certain foods for our requirement, then the agriculture evolved, right, from small scale to larger scale. As and when the population started increasing, so people started growing more and more crops. Now let's first understand, now like I said the word crop, let's understand what do we mean by crops. What is a crop basically, right? So when I talk about the term crop, so it is always like, definitely we are talking about the plants that we are growing in our daily life. But when we are eating the plants, and we are talking about, so understand this term is used for the same type of plants that are being cultivated at one place on a large scale. Understand this, students, that large scale cultivation is something which is very very important whenever we are talking about crops, right? So large scale cultivation is like in, not in tens and twenties, like there are not 20 plants of wheat, not 20 plants of rice, but a large scale, like hundreds and thousands of the plants are grown there, right? So in this way we see that the same type of plants are being cultivated at one place on a large scale. Now what do we understand by the term agricultural field, right? So agricultural field, when we are talking about, it is a plot of land where we see that the growth of these, or the rearing of, or the raising of these plants are taking place, right? So we are cultivating these plants on a plot of land. Right, students? So first let's understand and recapitulate what we have studied up till wheat plants, and from that we are obtaining tons of wheat grains, right? So in that way crops are being utilized for the plant, for the food requirements of the country, and definitely in every country the export and import is going on, so for the whole world basically, right? So now let's move on to the question that is here now: what is an agricultural field? So when we are talking about agricultural field, so it is a plot of land where the agricultural activities are taking place, like the plant that we are raising, right? So all of this is happening in an agricultural field. It is a particular land that is completely dedicated for this type of functions, right? For all these practices, or that is the agricultural practices, right? चलिए नेक्स्ट आ जाते हैं क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ क्रॉप्स. वंस वी हैव अंडरस्टूड व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज अ क्रॉप, लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट डू वी हाउ डू वी क्लासिफाई देम. सो देयर आर टू bases of classification. First base is the food products. So what are the products that we are obtaining from the crops? On the basis of that we are classifying a crop. The other basis is the season, which we will study later in this particular session. So first of all, let's understand that how we classify the crops based on the products that we are obtaining, right? So we have seen in the, when we were talking about agriculture, that there were two things. One was the food and other was the other useful products that we obtain, right? So other useful products, when we were talking about say the cloth that you're wearing, usually cotton, is a fiber which we obtain from plant, right? Then apart from that, wood that we are using for making furniture, all of this comes under the category of the other useful products that we are talking about, right? So basing on that, we classify different types of crops. So first classification, under this particular classification, the first category is cereal crops. ठीक है, तो सीरियल क्रॉप्स की बात करते हैं. पहले क्या होता है सीरियल क्रॉप, ये समझते हैं. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट डू वी मीन बाय दी सीरियल क्रॉप्स. नाउ दीज आर दी क्रॉप्स विच आर यूजुअली ग्रोन फॉर देयर सीड ग्रेन्स, राइट? सो व्हाट आर दे ग्रोन फॉर? दे आर ग्रोन for their seed grains. Like for example, usually the cereal crops consist of wheat, right? This is the picture of wheat crop. Then we have rice, right? Apart from that, we have what? We have barley. All of these are what? These are your cereal crops, right? These are, if you see, if we talk about wheat or we talk about say the rice or even the barley, so what is utilized in them? It is the seed grain which is utilized, right? So ये जो आपका wheat है, usually अगर आप देखें तो गेहूं जो आप खाते हैं usually वो किस फॉर्म में होता है? वो सीड के फॉर्म में होता है. तो जब हम सीरियल क्रॉप्स की बात कर रहे हैं तो उसमें हमें सीड ग्रेन्स मिलते हैं, ठीक है? हम सीड ग्रेन्स के लिए को ग्रो करते हैं. So what is there, what nutrient is present in a cereal crop? In cereal crop we usually have the nutrients as carbohydrate, right? So we have studied about all these nutrients and we know that carbohydrate is used for the energy, right? So carbohydrate, and apart from that we also have fiber, right? So this is what is the cereal crop. Okay, moving on, the next type is your fiber crops, right? So fiber crops are the crops which are used or they are grown for the fiber, right? Fiber is utilized for different things. One is for clothing, right? And other is for upholstery. Now what exactly is upholstery? Usually the furniture that is covered with the cloth, that is the upholstery. Then apart from that, different other rugs and all these things are upholstery, right? So when we are talking about the fiber crops, we are saying that the fiber that we are growing, now the fiber that we had in cereal crop was different, that was a kind of nutrient, but this is the fiber that we are growing for clothing and other functions, right? So the example of this is this particular crop is cotton. Then you have jute, right? Apart from that, you have hemp, all of these are the examples of your fiber crops, means the crops that are grown for fiber. Then moving on, we have other kind of crops which is called as the pulses or legumes, right? So pulses and legumes are the crops which are grown for the protein, right? So these particular crops are rich in the protein content, right? Usually your at your home also your mother would say that please eat the pulses, beta dal khao, moong ki dal khao, arhar ki dal khao, you should eat the pea. All of these, why everybody is saying to eat and consume more of these pulses and legumes, the reason is protein, राइट. सो प्रोटीन रिच ये पर्टिकुलर आपके पल्सेस और लेग्यूम्स में बहुत प्रोटीन होता है, एंड दैट्स द रीजन वाई वी से दैट इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस टू कंज्यूम दैम, राइट. सो एग्जाम्पल एज यू नो इज द कॉमन बीन, right? It is a common bean. You have lentils, that means the different kind of pulses like your arhar, moong. Then you have chickpea, you have soya bean, you have pea, that is the matar. All of these are the example of your what we say pulses and legumes, right? Then moving on, we have the other category, that is the oil yielding crops. Now these are the crops which give us what do they give us? They provide us with edible oil, right? So what do we understand by edible oil? You must have seen your mother cook in the kitchen, and usually what is she using for cooking? She is using different kinds of oil, right? So when we say edible, that means something which we can eat, right? So these are the edible oils which we obtain from the oil yielding crop. Usually we utilize the seeds of these crops for extracting the oil. The example being, there are different kinds of examples. We have mustard, right? Then what we have sunflower, right? We have sunflower oil, right? Then apart from that we have groundnut. All these are the example of your oil yielding plants, right? So all of these are rich in oil. The seeds are utilized for extracting oil. And what is oil rich in? Which nutrient? Usually it is rich in fat, right? So the oil is rich in fat content, right? So this is the oil yielding plant. Again, it is very, very important because alright, somebody Rakesh Singh has asked that yielding का क्या मतलब होता है? So yielding is giving, something which we obtain, right? So these are the oil giving plants, right? So again, so edible oil is something which we obtain from these plants, and the example is mustard, sunflower, groundnut, and various other examples are also there. Now moving on, we have other plants which we call as the okay, students, I can see there are certain questions. I would request you to please have a little patience. We will understand about the all these classifications first, and then I'm going to take up your questions, right? So please have a little patience and try and concentrate on the explanation part first. Alright, so moving on, we have the sugar yielding crops. These are the crops which have high sugar content, right? These are having high sugar content in them, and what we obtain from them? Definitely, as the name suggests, we obtain sugar. Now the major example is sugarcane. As you can see, this is an example of the sugar yielding crops. This is grown on large scale in various states for obtaining sugar, right? Now understand, like you might say, okay, that the fruits that you're eating, say your apple or guava or papaya for that matter, is quite sweet. So why don't we use those plants or those fruits for obtaining sugar? Understand this, that the key word that you need to remember is the high sugar content, right? So sugar cane is rich in sugar, and that's why we use this particular crop for obtaining sugar for our uses, right? So sugar definitely is used for various purposes, and that is why this crop becomes really, really important, right? Now again, Amia also is asking what is yielding. Yielding means giving, right? So when we are obtaining something, that is the word which shows the which is yielding means that we are getting something from the crop. Now moving on, next category is vegetables. Now vegetables are very very important for us because they are rich in vitamins and minerals, right? So we know that this particular nutrient, that is your vitamin and mineral, is very very important for your healthy life, right? They protect you from different kinds of diseases. Apart from that, they also assist in growth, right? So vegetables are rich in vitamin and mineral. Now before we understand about these vegetables, I would like to ask that what are the different parts of a plant. Whenever we are thinking of a plant, there are certain parts, right? So what are those parts, right? So to answer to that question is that there are in a plant we have leaf, right? We have stem, right? We have root, right? Apart from that, what else do we have? We have flower, right? So these are your certain parts of the plant. You will say that ma'am, there is fruit also. Yes, definitely fruit is also a part of the plant, but for that we are going to talk about it a little later, right? So now, why do we need to understand the parts of plant when we are talking about the vegetables? Understand this, students, that there are different parts of the plant which provide us with the vegetables that we are eating, right? So if you look at it, you have first of all leaf. So the leafy vegetables that everybody asks you to eat, the green leafy vegetables, what are those? The example is spinach, right, जिसको हम हिंदी में पालक भी बोलते हैं. Then we have fenugreek, right, जिसको हम हिंदी में मेथी बोलते हैं. Then when we come to the stem part, what is it? The major, the food which is there, which this particular vegetable is accompanied everywhere, and that is potato. So this is a modified, it is a modified it is a modified stem that we are eating, right? Then next we have the root, right? The example of this is carrot, right? So carrot and radish are the root part of the plant. Then if we talk about the flower, right, so we have cauliflower as an example, right? So you can see that all of these parts of the plant are edible, and they provide us with what? They provide us with vegetables that has high water content and is rich in vitamin and minerals, right? Now moving on, once we have understood that these four parts, leaf, stem, root and flower, provide us with vegetable, we move on to the fifth part, that is fruit. Now fruit is something which we obtain from the plants. Again, it is a very very important part of your food because these are again rich in vitamin and minerals, right? And these vitamin and minerals help us in again the growth and defense against different kinds of diseases. Now understand, whenever we are talking about fruits, we always think of banana, we always think of mango, right? We always think of apple. But I will give you an example which is a little different from your daily fruits that you're thinking. I will give you an example of tomato, right? I will give you an example of brinjal. Now students, understand that these two are also fruits, although हिंदी में हम इन्हें क्या बोलते हैं? सब्जी. ठीक है, जब भी हम बाहर जाएंगे तो हम कहेंगे सब्जी ब्रिंजल की या बैगन की सब्जी. मगर students understand that brinjal is a kind of fruit, right? Because it is the part of the plant that grows as a fruit, correct? Although we do not eat it in general sense, whenever we are talking, we usually we call it as a fruit, we call it as a vegetable. But when we are talking about biology part of it, brinjal is a fruit, right? How do you know that? Okay, when you have to look at a fruit and understand, okay, whether you look at a vegetable and then you think that, okay, whether this vegetable is a fruit or not, simple thing to do is cut the vegetable and see whether or not there are seeds present in it. So you know that tomato also has seeds, right? If you cut open a brinjal, there also you will find seeds. Apart from that, there are different examples where you will find seeds present. So wherever there is a seed, understand that that particular vegetable which you are saying is actually the fruit part of the plant, right? Okay, again I will explain it a little better because I can see there are certain problem regarding this concept. So I will explain it to you again. So when we are talking about brinjal, it is the plant has five parts basically: leaf, stem, root, flower and fruit, right? So brinjal is the fruit part of the plant, right? जनरल सेंस में हम इसको सब्जी बोलते हैं कि बैगन की सब्जी बन रही है या लौकी की सब्जी बन रही है, बट जब हम बायोलॉजी की बात करते हैं, व्हेन वी आर लुकिंग एट इट फ्रॉम अ बायोलॉजिकल पर्सपेक्टिव, this brinjal is actually the fruit part of the plant. Correct? I hope this is clear. I hope this is clear. Now moving on, the next classification is spices. Right now, this spices you all know is nothing but the flavoring plant product. All of these provides flavor for the food that we are cooking, right? So this is the flavoring part. The example is simple: pepper, ginger, cloves, cardamom, right? Cinnamon. All of these are the example of the spices that we are eating, right? So I hope you are able to understand this. And with this we come to an end to the classification based on the useful products, right? Now another classification in the beginning only I had talked about was based on the was based on the seasons, right? So another classification is based on seasons and or their climatic conditions like temperature, right, rainfall, humidity. All of these are the basis on this classification, whether a crop is growing in summer season or whether it is growing in your winter season, what kind of crop is there, and according to that we classify the crops. So there are two classifications: one is the rabi crops and other is the kharif crops. Right? So first of all, let's talk about the rabi crops. So these are the crops which we grow in the winter season, right? So usually whenever we say winter season, it is it is during the winters that we grow these crops, right? So rabi crops are what? These are the winter crops, right? Grown during the winter season. Now how do we understand that? Let's see that when are the seeds of the plants sown. So when we say sow, meaning that कब जो है सीड हम लोग फील्ड में डालते हैं, ठीक है? सोइंग का मतलब होता है, हिंदी में हम उसको बोलते हैं बोना, राइट? सो व्हेन वी आर सेइंग दैट वी आर पुटिंग द सीड्स इन द सॉइल, व्हेन डू वी डू दैट? फॉर रबी क्रॉप्स द सीड्स आर सोन इन द मंथ ऑफ अक्टूबर. जब आप ड्यूरेशन देखेंगे यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई द रबी क्रॉप्स आर कॉल्ड एज द विंटर सीजन क्रॉप्स, राइट? सो दिस इज राइट, दिस इज द October. This is sown in October. And when is it harvested? Harvested is when do we obtain the fruit or the seed that we are looking for, when we are we are taking out the useful thing from the crop, right? So October is so the seed is sowed in October and it is harvested in the month of March or April. Now if you look at the time period, you will see that this particular time period is the winter time. What are the months which we have covered? We have covered October, we have covered November, we have covered December, January and February. And we know in India all of these months are the months of winter season, and that is the reason why we call the rabi crops as the winter season or the winter crops, right? The example is again the pea, right? We have wheat, we have mustard and barley and gram. All of these are the example of rabi crops, right? Now moving on, the other classification is the kharif crops, right? These are the crops which are grown in the rainy season, right? These are the crops which are grown in the rainy season, and again we will see that when is it sowed. So the crop is usually sown in June, right? And when it is harvested, what is the harvesting time? we see that the harvesting time is September. And now if you look at the months, what are the months that are covered? So the months are July, right? So June, July, August and September. So these are the time, this is the time where monsoon is present in India, right? So this is the rainy season crop, that is, it is grown during the rainy season, right? Now once we have understood what are kharif crops, let's look at the examples. So the examples are groundnut, right, rice or paddy, then also we have sugarcane and maize. All of these are the crops which are grown during the kharif season, right? Now moving on, let's look at this particular question. It is a very, very important question for you to understand. Why paddy cannot be grown in the winter season? The reason is, when we say paddy, we are talking about rice, right? And we know that paddy is also known as what? It is also known as rice. So the plants, it is a kharif season crop. And why is it grown in kharif season particularly? Because rice needs a lot of water for the growth, right? It requires lot of water. If we are growing it in the winter season, right, we will not be able to provide a huge amount of water to this particular plant, and what will happen, that the rice will not be able to grow properly, and the the amount that we want, we will not be able to get, right? So इसी वजह से rice जो है वो हमारा rainy season में है, ताकि हमें irrigation कम करना पड़े, right? हमें rain से ही maximum पानी मिल जाता है, and then we have because of that we are able to cultivate the rice properly, right? With this we come to an end of this particular session. Now let's understand that now let's see that what are the different questions that you have asked. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल किसी ने मुझसे अगेन पूछा है कि मैम एक्सप्लेन राबी क्रॉप्स. तो राबी क्रॉप्स आर द क्रॉप्स विच आर ग्रोन इन द विंटर सीजन, राइट? इनको हम अक्टूबर में सो करते हैं और मार्च में हार्वेस्ट करते हैं. दैट मीन्स द ग्रोथ पीरियड इज ड्यूरिंग द विंटर, राइट? द एग्जाम्पल्स आर पी एंड wheat, right? Then somebody has asked what is paddy. Paddy is the other name of rice. Okay. राबी क्रॉप्स के बारे में मैंने आपको बता दिया. Alright, Geeta is asking that there are no seeds in grape. Actually, Geeta, there are the grapes that you are eating are actually hybrid, meaning they are a better quality. But if you eat desi crop, meaning desi grape usually has a very small seed in it. Alright, let me see. Okay, Kamini, pea is actually not a stem. Pea is a fruit basically. It is not stem, beta. Raising field. Okay, Mayank, I don't think raising field is the term. It is agricultural field where we are raising crops. Yes, definitely, Anjan. Chili is actually a fruit. Yes, again, ladyfinger is a fruit. I think I have explained that how do we say, okay, ginger is not a fruit, students, alright? Please understand, ginger is not a fruit. Yes, Amaz Fire is asking whether, the lemon is also a fruit. Definitely, students, lemon is again a fruit that we usually eat. All right, so I think students, if you have any other questions, please ask. Okay, humidity means that it is a condition where there is water in the environment, right? Water vapor, right? So that is how we say it is humid. Whenever there is more water, the humidity is more. Whenever there is less water, the humidity is less, right? Okay, Wahida, I already told you paddy, the other name of paddy is actually rice. No, paddy, Kamini, cannot be grown in the winter season because it requires lot of water, and winter season is a dry season basically. Rich in carbohydrate and fiber. All right, so I think that's it for today, and everybody, I hope have understood about this particular this particular section of the chapter. We will meet again, and further we will understand about the different agricultural practice that are going on to grow these crops, right? So thank you, students, and thank you all for being with us. Have a great day.